Hello, and welcome to Delta Source, your number one source for career rehabilitation from criminal to military recruit.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
one
just
of your
like our
hosts, Good
boy.
Paul, just like our boy Poe Dameron, who we'll be talking about today.
Yes,
That's right.
the
Uh,
Dameron comic.
which I have actually not read, and will in fact be a blind reaction from me, uh, with my friend Mr. Legitimacy here, who has read it.
Indeed. And I'm sure
Um,
Good Call Paul will have some good calls in the blind reacts.
here's
Uh,
hoping. Here's hoping.
so I want to start off by saying this is not a comprehensive review or recap of the Dameron comic series. It's mostly just gonna be gushing about stuff that I enjoyed from it. Very loose structure. I tried to order topics that are small and brief, going to topics that are longer and probably will have more discussion. And of course,
Okay.
there will be spoilers for the entire comic series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, overview is that this comic covers some of the First Order Resistance conflict leading up to The Force Awakens, and then it ends up telling story concurrent to The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and then a little bit of story after The Last Jedi. So in that
Okay, cool.
sense, it's actually, uh, you know, sort of unique in a series that sprawls the time before and after multiple movies. Due to the good luck, if you want to call it, that our two movies ended up being back to back in the timeline.
Hmm. That's a very yeah, that's a good point. I think that's kind of probably the only piece of Star Wars media that's really like that.
Mm-hmm.
Come to think of it, probably literally the only one. All right, that's unique at least. That's an interesting start.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So, okay, first small topic.
Yes.
It's related to what we were just talking about. Its final chapter, issue 31, was some of the earliest post Last Jedi plot that we had revealed in any medium. It might be the first. I didn't do an exhaustive
Oh,
check to see if anything else came before it, but
okay.
certainly some of the earliest because that issue published in September 2018, less than a year after The Last Jedi. And then the next, I don't know, main or I don't like I said, I didn't check all the publishing dates, but the
For
Resistance
sure.
Reborn novel picks up directly after the final chapter of this comic, and it was published about a
Hmm.
year later in the months leading up to,
Rise of Skywalker.
yeah, Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I
So,
remember that one coming out.
this comic was in the first half of the 2 year wait, and it was already forging ahead with plot after The Last Jedi,
Hmm.
meager as the plot developments may be.
Gutsy call. Gutsy call. I'm sure a chunk of it may have gotten retconned by Tross, but
No, actually, it
no, really, they kept consistent. Well, all
yeah.
right. I respect that.
Uh, Next small topic.
Yes.
I love what they do for 3PO in this series, because in the lead up to the war with the First Order, 3PO is a spy master. He's managing a network of spy droids all across the galaxy to bring intel to the Resistance. Although he really prefers that you would not call them spies and refer to them as operatives.
Hmm, okay, that's kind of a cool detail, to be honest. It's nice to give 3PO something fun to do beyond just being the translator guy. And I feel like he could do that pretty well,
Yeah,
actually. His programming seems to. That's pretty neat. All right, I give them a point for that. That's
yeah.
creative. It's creative and it's a fun thing to do with the character.
And it isn't just like a one and done gag or whatever. It's a premise that keeps coming up
Hmm.
relevant throughout the run of the comic. So yeah, I really appreciate that 3PO gets to do important military logistics stuff because I don't think he really got to do that in the Galactic Civil War.
No, not so much. He was more doing, well, yeah, not a whole lot. He was more doing state dinners and things like that. Uh, which is also important if you're trying to get allies, but
That's true.
they don't write a lot of books about it generally.
Yeah. So next, Poe's Squadron, Black Squadron. I think they're pretty cool. If
All right.
just a little underdeveloped, at least within the confines of this comic. So you have, okay, let me see if I can name them all. You have Snap Wexley,
Of
obviously.
course, actually,
Um,
the man himself.
Lulo, Lampar or something. He is Poe's godfather, I think. Either
Okay.
godfather or just like a close family friend of his parents that looks out for him like an uncle.
Mhm.
Um, there is Kare, who, like I said, they're a little underdeveloped. I don't know what all I could really tell you about Kare except that she is romance interest with Snap,
Okay.
and
Fair
then
enough.
there is Jess. Oh, and also Suralinda, who's introduced later. Uh, Jess, I have a note about. Uh, she was first depicted in the Force Awakens movie as one of the pilots in the assault on Starkiller Base.
Oh, did she survive the assault on Starkiller Base? I guess she must
Yes.
have.
And
Okay.
then later on, this character was, adapted into the comics to
Huh.
actually have, any dialogue at all. Um,
Interesting.
so I read with a grain of salt, that doesn't mean it's true. But I read that the actress of Jess in The Force Awakens originally auditioned for the role of Rey, but ended up with this Starfighter role. Um, so that's a neat bit of trivia, I guess.
Yeah, that is kind of a fun piece of trivia. It's neat that they're bringing people from the screen uh to, well, especially more minor characters, bringing them into a comic. That I always like it when they do that.
Yeah. Uh, I really did enjoy seeing more of Snap Wexley, having read the Aftermath books, and we also get a brief reappearance of Mr. Bones.
Oh, Mr. Bones, the battle droid.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Apparently, he has kept like a memory core with Mr. Bones' personality matrix over the years, and when they're in a pinch, he like installs it into a commando droid that is one of 3PO's operatives, and it sort of comes to life as Mr. Bones, and he's like, "I'll perform violence," and then he does.
Uh, all right, that's a fun callback. I remember that being one of the characters that I definitely thought was a cool idea from the Aftermath series. So I'm glad to see that he gets a bit of love. I like a commando droid from the Clone Wars era, like we saw on the
Yes.
episode uh, Rookies. That
Yes,
we
precisely.
Yeah, if anybody is curious about that, they could watch our episode on that episode, which will be out probably at some point if it isn't already.
If there's one thing Star Wars has, it's lots of episodes, and we're the same.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna cross the road here. Anyway, all right, that's cool. That's cool. I like that a lot.
One more
Mando Droid's
thing.
neat. Mr. Bones is neat. Do go on.
Yes. One more thing that Snap gets to do in this comic is during the stretch where it's overlapping Force Awakens, um, they fill in some sort of logistical questions about how the whole Resistance is preparing the attack on Starkiller Base,
Okay, cool.
because they get the intel on it, but then Kare and Snap go out there together alone
Mm-hmm.
in a small craft, and it was sort of a confusing mission plan. But basically, Snap
Okay.
goes down in this little like orbital glider pod or something, so that he can dip beneath the shields and get some readings on
All
Starkiller
right.
Base. And he almost burns up and dies,
Oh
but
man. Okay.
they managed to get him out just in time. Uh, and that's how they have more information and like the readouts of the battle station whenever we see
Okay.
the scene where they're planning the assault.
That would have been fun to see. I guess the movie didn't really have time to do that, but that's a neat
Yeah.
detail. I'm glad that they took time to at least show that they did do that. Logistics are
Right.
important in a galactic war.
Mm-hmm. And it gives Snap, a sort of critical thing to do there, almost like a Jin or so or a Cassian Andor in being pivotal in
Yeah.
the destruction of Starkiller Base. Um,
All right, that's definitely a cool detail.
yeah. We also get more of Lor Santeca. I
Oh,
think
good. Good.
I think this was pretty much his first appearance outside of The Force Awakens, where he's there for 2 minutes before getting
Mm-hmm.
killed.
And he has about 5 lines. Yeah. Poor
Yeah.
guy.
This
Mm.
will begin to make things right. So, yeah, I guess really this comic is beginning to make things right by letting Lor Santeca have some time to be a character.
Thank
Uh,
goodness for that. I thought he was so cool when I saw that movie for the first time. I was like, this guy's neat. Oh, he died.
yep.
Oh, well, I'm glad he gets some love at least. That's definitely nice.
Yeah. So the main objective for Poe throughout the comic is to find Lor Santeca. Leia charges him with this near the beginning, and the whole time they're just seeking out intelligence on where they can find Lor Santeca, and
Well,
the
this
First
makes
Order
things
is competing with
okay.
them to try and get the same intel,
Oh
so
man.
they can get to Lor Santeca. Uh, if not to find their way to Luke, to at least control the information about a way to Luke.
Right. So this is how he got to where he was standing when the movie started.
Yes.
Okay, that's really cool. Man, this is exactly the sort of supplemental material we need to help fill in those blanks. All
Yeah.
right. Most excellent.
So they finally catch up to Lor Santeca. The intel from 3PO Spynet pays off, and he is breaking into a vault on Cato Nemoidia, where these rich Nemoidian people are using old Clone Wars tech to basically have a high security vault for people who want to protect things there.
Okay. Mhm.
And he's breaking into one of these vaults so that he just wants to examine this Force artifact, and he's breaking in to look at it and then put it back and leave. But of course they catch him, and
Of
they
course.
try to put him on trial. So Poe and Black Squadron and Leia have to do a whole undercover operation to break Lor Santeca out. And there's some more stuff after that, but at the end, Lor Santeca makes it with them back to the Resistance base on Dakar, and then his final line in the comic is that or I don't know, final state of affairs is he's going out to get the information about where Luke is. I guess he doesn't know
Okay.
where Luke is, but he knows how to
He knows
know.
find out it. Yeah, all right. That's
And
neat.
then they're gonna reconvene later, and they reconvene once he has the information, and they meet on Jakku.
Right. So that's the issue 1 of the Poe Dameron comic, or the first arc of it, I guess.
They don't do the operation to save Lor Santeca until book 4 out of 5. So
Oh,
there's
okay. So
three
that's
books
later.
of
Okay.
looking for a lead on Lor Santeca.
Right. Huh, okay, so they do lead into that quite a bit. Okay, okay, I see.
Yeah. I think also at this time when the comic was publishing, it was not established that Lor Santeca used to work with Luke searching for Force artifacts. I think all we knew is that he was just a Force artifact expert.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they hadn't established that backstory yet, from
Yeah.
what little I do recall about that.
Yeah, so it's not until
Mm.
later after they settle what actually happens with Luke's past in The Last Jedi that, later writers can springboard off of that and
Right.
weave Lor Santeca into the story a little more.
Yeah, man, that makes sense. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So, next topic. I
Yes.
think these are, in fact, expanding in duration with
Oh.
each topic.
Well, it's clearly I guess we're going in reverse order to what you had the
Yeah.
most to say about. Yeah.
So, book 5 of 5 is
Yes.
really awesome to read while you have on Force Awakens and The Last Jedi.
Oh, okay, cool. Because it expands upon the content in them.
Yes. So, for, the sort of setting that you and I enjoy from time to time on a great May the 4th, where you just have Star Wars on all day and you're looking
Oh,
at
yeah.
extra materials, playing games, reading
Playing video
comics all at the
games.
same time.
Just a Star Wars sprawl
Yeah.
occupying the whole room for like 12 hours. Yes.
Exactly. And
Gloriously, yes.
the book 5 really makes Force Awakens and Last Jedi a much more engaging experience
Hmm,
in
Interesting.
a binge setting like that.
Okay.
I read book 5 and I had the 2 movies on. I was actually playing them at 1.5 speed, and I was skipping around to just the scenes that Poe was in because I was in the middle of trying to get just the Poe story. But in general, if you just leave the movies playing at normal speed and you read the book at a leisurely pace, you can see the two plots happening, side by side, and it doesn't make it a perfect experience, but it's a
Sure.
lot more engaging and a lot of
Hmm.
fun to imagine how all the different parts are connecting.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I gotta
Yeah,
say, I'm glad that it enhances the viewing experience.
absolutely. Obviously, it can't do anything for Rise of Skywalker, but at least for
Yeah.
those two movies, it does enhance them in my experience.
Well,
Um,
you heard it here first, folks. Give this a shot. Tell us what your results are.
yeah, absolutely. Uh, oh yeah. So also, the book 5 is framed as Poe telling Finn and Rey about his adventures,
Okay, sort of a storytelling
because
device. Yeah,
at the end of Last Jedi is really the first time that all three of them are together. It's the first time Rey ever meets Poe.
that is true. Yeah, I remember.
So he's catching Rey and Finn up on all the stuff that happened during, the last week. Um, so he's telling Poe how he survived on Jakku because they didn't have time to talk about that in the movie,
Right.
and then during Last Jedi, while pretty much all of the Resistance is being slaughtered by the First Order, Black Squadron was off on another planet,
Oh,
and we
okay.
are receiving transmissions that 3PO is passing along, telling about how their mission is going, and then eventually the transmissions catch up to real time, and the latest broadcast is, "Come here, Poe, we need your help."
Uh,
So Poe goes out to help them, and that's where we get the first real plot events that take place after Last Jedi.
huh. Okay, cool. What are these events?
Okay. They are defending a city from the First Order because they've just, destroyed the New Republic, so they are in the middle of going and conquering pretty much every system
Right,
that
right.
they find important. I think it's called Grail City. I think that's the place they're at. I don't remember the
Okay.
planet. Um, and so the four members of Black Squadron are there trying to fend off the First Order, and then Poe shows up. This is kind of fun. He has to get because his X-wing was blown up in the
Hmm.
Last Jedi. He has to get a loaner ship, starfighter from Gracchus the Hutt,
Oh no.
because nobody is, responding to the Resistance's calls for help. But Gracchus is the only one who picks up the holoproj when Poe calls, so he gives him
Well,
a fighter on loan.
that's kind of funny. It's like, look, you're what's available. All right. Uh.
So he gets in this borrowed fighter and goes to
Hmm.
back up Black Squadron. They repel the First Order, and then they have a nice sentimental moment that
Oh,
ends the comic
okay.
series.
Neat.
Yeah,
Well, that sounds like it had some heart in it. It sounds like it had some build up. It sounds like it had some decent like story expanding moments that would honestly probably do a bit to help some of the more disjointed elements of the sequel trilogy. Uh
yeah. It.
yeah.
I really think it helps feel like, if if it does not at least. Okay, hold on. I cannot say that this makes everything make sense. It does not
Right.
explain all the character choices and writing decisions, but it does make it feel like a big continuous event, like a
Okay.
real galactic history.
Right. Makes it
Yeah,
feel less disjointed and like why are we even here? When did this happen?
right.
That sort of thing. Okay. Huh.
Um, so I think this comic really makes Poe the coolest sequel character out of the main ones of Rey,
Mhm.
Poe, and Finn, just because he has the most story.
Hmm. Okay.
Um, Ray and Finn, they have a lot of, stories like, here's an adventure of Finn while he was a stormtrooper, or here's an adventure of Ray while she was a scavenger, but they're still just stuck in their, beginning
The
status quo
world.
of as a
Yeah.
stormtrooper or as a scavenger.
I was the only one who
Whereas,
was really acting on the world prior to the movie starting.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Huh. Yeah, that's true. He definitely had the most opportunity for backstory because we all know what Ray did. I mean, we could get some details here and there, but
Yeah.
and same thing with Finn. He was mopping floors apparently.
Uh,
Uh, so yeah, although admittedly I would not mind seeing John Boy again like a janitorial style sitcom where he's like working first order. He's got like his buddy who's a slacker and they just have to
Honestly,
like
that'd
clean
be
up the
pretty
Star
good.
Destroyers. Yeah, that could be pretty funny. I don't know. I feel like maybe Kevin Hart in it is like his friend.
Oh
You
my
know,
gosh.
two stormtrooper buddies that kind of hate their jobs and start. Oh man, I can see it now.
Another day mopping up Star Killer Base.
Disney, you can have that one for free.
Yeah. So part of Poe, his story and everything is his relationship with Leia. Since Leia is the head of the Resistance and Poe reports to her all the time in throughout all 5 books. Well, I guess not as much book 5, but throughout the whole story, a lot of Poe has a lot of interactions with Leia where she's expecting great things of him and he's, reporting his successes and failures. And it really, I think, adds more weight to why Leia is, upset with Poe in The Last Jedi because she's been spending all this time with him trying to help, shape him into who could be a future leader. And, then he makes a real big flub there while they're evacuating the Dakar base.
Right. Yeah, that whole situation.
Yeah. And with that in mind, during the run of the comic, he's really not allowed to have much real character growth. He stays kind of flat the whole time, and then the Dakar evacuation is like his big flub. And that's just because they need him to still be in the same place character-wise as the start of Force Awakens and Last Jedi. So, yeah. As with other pieces of Poe media, I think they do a really good job of capturing his sort of quippy Marvel dialogue style.
Yeah.
And really, I think it's pretty good. In general, the kind of quippy Marvel dialogue has worn on me over time, but I think it's still good with Poe just because you're either, in the movies you're seeing Oscar Isaac's performance of it, which is great, and in the books I'm imagining it. So
yeah, he's kind of brash, he's kind of cocky. Like you can have a character here and there who has that sort of dialogue. It's just that when literally everyone's doing it all the time, it does start to grate. But
yeah.
Poe feels like he can get away with it. He's a confident space pilot. Of course he's gonna be snarky. Like, come on.
Mm-hmm. So, my last topic, and this will probably close out the episode, is it's nice that we get to see the First Order and Resistance conflict before the Hosnian Cataclysm.
Oh, definitely. That's one of the things that I think they definitely should have probably fed into the backstory of the movies a little bit more, but I know the EU has definitely poked that a few times, and I'm glad this one did. Because the more information we have on that, the better. Context is important.
Yes.
It really is.
And so, the context, I think, is really interesting because it does shape this war into something, I think, substantially different from the Galactic Civil War.
Okay.
Because both sides are trying to maintain nominal peace, at least.
Right.
Even though they have some very obvious skirmishes, they're trying to avoid all-out war until the Hosnian Cataclysm, and then the First Order is like, well, the gloves are off, and
going hard, boys.
The Resistance is like, well, now there's no New Republic to offend, so I guess we can go to war.
Let's get it, boys. Yeah. All right, fair enough.
And then they immediately get blown up on Crate.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, so with some extra context from like the Bloodline novel, the Resistance has only existed for about 5 years, and the whole time it has just been whatever Leia can scrape together. Whatever people she can convince to be part of it because they recognize the New Republic is not doing what it needs to for galactic security. Whatever ships they can scrounge up. Whatever funds she can use from her own stores or from donations. So it's really just all centered around Leia and whatever she can manage to bring together herself.
Huh.
Unlike the Galactic Civil War, where at least as depicted in Rebels, I don't know how it was in the Legends canon. You have a lot of rebel cells
Oh yeah, a lot of
emerging and
factors.
coordinating all across the galaxy, and the Resistance is really just the one cell.
That would explain why there's like not very many of them, to be
Yeah,
honest. Okay, well that's fair. I mean, there's still a couple of questions about like why is no one else doing anything about this, I guess.
right.
But it does make sense that there's not that many. If that's how they chose to write it, then I guess it makes sense that that's why it is the way that it is. You know.
Yeah. Um, and so the First Order trying to maintain this sort of status quo that the New Republic does not need to fight us. We don't need to go to open war right now.
No.
They, opt for like the Saturday morning villain of like I'll get you next time, Poe Dameron, because
Uh-huh.
they want to avoid the outright hostilities and stuff that could lead to open warfare for the time being.
Right.
Um, and so that sort of Cold War sort of situation, coupled with the Resistance being a really small group without much support, I think
Mm-hmm.
does give this a much different character than the Galactic Civil War.
I agree. Knowing the backstory, obviously that's not really what we're presented in the films,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But with that information on play, I wish we would have gotten more of the Cold War style stuff because that seems like something that could have been pretty interesting, to be honest.
Yeah.
It seems cool from what you mentioned, like that I could watch a show about that or a movie or I don't know something. Read a
Right.
comic perhaps.
Yes, and you
Hmm.
should. I would recommend this entire series.
Well, all right, you heard it here first, folks. I might have to go check it out. To be honest, I've been kind of down on the new EU ever since they destroyed my precious expanded universe that I spent like years of my life memorizing every detail of. Uh,
Understandable.
but they're still talented, creative people making material for the new stuff. There's no reason why I need to reject all of it outright.
Yeah.
Perhaps
And
I've judged you too harshly.
I've been trying to just find the stuff that I can enjoy in the new canon, and this Poe Dameron
Mm.
comic is really a shining example of that, and that's why I wanted to do this whole episode about it.
Well, cool. This is your chance to highlight one of your favorite new things you found, and that's most excellent. I'm glad this comic was so good, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm definitely going to be collecting all the books sometime in the future, since I just had them at the library before. Yeah.
Indeed. All right. Well, there you
Well,
have it, folks. I guess. Any
yeah.
any other thoughts, comments,
Nope.
concerns, things?
I'm
All
all
right.
good. Well,
Well, and with
this has
that, I
been
guess.
Delta Source Podcast, your number one source for loner starfighters from Gracchus the Hud.
Yes, that's right. We offer very reasonable rates.
But be sure to bring it back in one piece.
Oh yeah. Don't chip that paint.
Until
Pay
next time,
Next
may the
time.
Force be
May the
with you.
force be with you.